Hello everyone, this is Bennyhillz, and this is a bit of a unique video. Someone named Marco Polo commented in one of my videos that they would be interested in something like this, and I totally understand if you're not interested in this, and you can just not watch it, and that's fine. My next video will be back to normal. But he or she asked if I would make a video about my Magic history and sort of how I learned the game and a little bit about my life and myself. And I do think in general it's sort of cool if there's a content creator and you can sort of connect with them on a personal level and sort of know a little bit about their personality and where they're coming from and that sort of thing. So I'm just gonna tell a little brief story of my life, mostly through the lens of magic, since that's sort of our common interest. And yeah, so definitely let me know in the comments like who you are, where you're from. Like I would love to hear about some of my viewers and sort of build those relationships because especially in these times when it's sometimes hard to find social outlets and like I'm a very extroverted person myself. I really love talking to people and it's sometimes hard to find outlets for that. So I would love to sort of forge some deeper connections with people that watch my videos and like clearly share an interest with me. So I was born in Georgia in a little town. Well, born in Atlanta, but grew up in a town called Rome, like right on the Alabama-Tennessee line. And I lived there until fourth grade. Went to Massachusetts for fifth and sixth grade. Back to Georgia for seventh and eighth, and then came back to Massachusetts for high school. And that was when I learned how to play Magic. One of my friends had learned at a summer camp, and he taught me the summer before freshman year of high school, and it was exactly what you would expect. Like we knew nothing. Like we made up a lot of the rules on our own. Like it was very, very sort of just whatever. I remember I was playing one game with my brother. We were doing a draft out of all of our cards, and I came up with the idea of trying to pick mostly cards of one color. I'd focused mostly on taking green cards, and then I was like, okay, if most of my lines are forest and most of my cards are green, I can play my spells. And so I had most of the green cards. My brother had all the other colors, and like three basics of each type. And I just crushed him because I could cast my spells consistently. And that was my first like breakthrough. Like no one ended up. It's not a very complicated breakthrough, obviously, but no one ever told me that. Like I did have to figure that out for myself. And when I realized that, like until then, I really thought it was like all luck. And then I was like, oh, maybe there's some skill here. And so I played very informally. My friend group had a very strict no net decking policy and no buying singles policy. So we could only open packs and build cards from the packs. And we played and slowly leveled up our decks. And at a certain point, I was like, okay, I understand the anti-net deck sentiment, but I kind of want to see what is the best thing people can do with this. And so I didn't copy people's decks, but I did look online and sort of see what some stuff were, and I became sort of obsessed with Legacy Goblins. And I went to Friday Night Magics with my like bad decks, and there was one guy who was like, I mean, not good, I'm sure, but like really good by my standards and by the standards of this local game store. And he had once built a Legacy Goblins deck, and so I slowly over time traded for a lot of his cards and did build a Legacy Goblins deck with like Aether Vials and Goblin Lackeys and all that. And I loved it. I thought it was really really fun, and it made me want to try and maybe do a little bit more competitive play. And I started playing. So my friends got a little bit less into it. We had like a group. We would still play sometimes, but they weren't that into it, and they definitely weren't into competitive play at all. So I started playing online a little bit on X Mage. I never really played on Cockatrice, but on X Mage mostly. Um, and then finally did get a Magic Online account and played a little bit, but like it costed money and I didn't have a job. But this was like mid high school, and I was just sort of focused on other things. Like I was also really into running. I was captain of the cross country team. I was also senior class president my senior year, and like I had a girlfriend, so I had a lot of responsibilities where I was just sort of busy. And Magic sort of took a backseat. I would play occasionally online, but not too much. Um, Went to college and senior year of high school I started going to a couple live tournaments and it was still like I was doing some janky things like I made a Maze's End deck that I took to one tournament. I made just like these were all in standard. My biggest success was I made a green white enchantments deck and I was in an open and I think I was 9-1 at the end of day one or 8-1 X1. Um, and my one loss was really close. I was sort of beating myself up about it. And then I made day two, and then on day two I sort of scrubbed out. I went 2-3, and ended up getting like 40th or something, and I made like $100 or something, like 150 maybe, and it was pretty sweet. But I was really like, oh man, like after that start, I could have done so much more. Um, and then a couple weeks later, I went to another tournament where I was off to an amazing start. I think I was 5-0, and I was playing a control deck, and we timed out, and it was very, very frustrating because my opponent had probably taken 70% of the time. Like I was moving very quickly because I knew the game was going to go long, but we timed out largely because of my opponent, and when we timed out, I was very ahead. I was almost definitely going to win, and I was just so frustrated. And I muttered under my breath, "I wish we could just flip a coin or something." Even though like a coin flip would have definitely favored my opponent, like in the abstract, I was going to win this game. But I just muttered that under my breath because I knew that a draw was basically like a loss for both of us, and it was not a legitimate proposal. I was not actually suggesting this, but a lot of people were watching because it was one of the last matches going, obviously, and um, someone went to a judge and told them that I proposed determining the outcome of a match via not playing the match, and I got DQ'd immediately. No warning, no nothing. I just instant disqualified. So my 5-0-1 became nothing, and I was so mad. I pleaded with the judges; they would not compromise. And I this was actually one of the most mad moments that I can remember. They gave me a piece of paper so that I could like fill out my satisfaction with the way the judges handled it or something, and I like ripped it up immediately, stormed out, like threw it in the trash, and I like punched a wall and like hurt my hand. I was so mad, and I definitely overreacted in hindsight, but like I was 18, like I was just very heated about this, and I sort of swore off Magic. I was like, okay, if they're gonna have this sort of authoritarian structure that just clearly is not focused on context and just seems pretty irrational, that's just not for me. Like it's not worth it anymore. So, and I also was about to go to college and like sort of really wanted to like throw myself into running, and like I knew there was so many new like social outlets and like clubs and stuff. I was still running, but like I wanted to like join some clubs and just like live the college life. And I was worried. I was going to college in Middlebury, Vermont, so really rural. There's no live tournaments. I was like, Magic is probably mostly over for me at this point. So I sold all of my decks except for one, Blue Eye Control, because that was sort of at that point the deck I liked the most, even though I hadn't really like had a ton of like big tournament success with it. And like went to college, didn't really play Magic for a year or two. But then over the summer after sophomore year, I decided to go back into Magic Online. At that point, I had a little bit of money from like summer jobs and whatnot. I had done research at Middlebury, and I built Blue Eye Control online and started playing. And I realized that this was actually a really nice source of income on the side because very quickly I was winning the vast majority of the time. Blue Eye Control was not an established deck at all in this point. I think it was 2017. It was definitely just not a popular deck, and so I got a lot of like sort of free wins because people didn't really know what I was doing, and a lot of people were very mad at me. They would be like, "Oh, you're playing this trash deck. You got lucky," but I managed to get lucky 75% of the time and pick up some trophies. And all of a sudden, next thing I know, I'm trophy leader. And like I wasn't even playing that much. I still was like working mostly full time and like running a lot. I was running like 80 miles a week at this point, and also I was living in a house on Middlebury's campus with like I think it was 9 of us in this house, and it was just like so fun and social. It was just like a really cool vibe, and like I was playing maybe like two leagues a day or so, and like just doing very well in them, and sort of like tinkering my deck. And I went to one tournament around this time and ran into Brian Braunduin, who was like a content creator for Star City Games that I was a huge fan of, and I asked him to come look at my deck. I was like, "Hey Brian, I know like this is sort of a non-setter deck, but I've been doing really well with it online. Like, can you take a look?" And he just completely dismissed it. He like looked through it and was like, "Yeah, like this is actually just fundamentally not understanding how the game works. No offense, but like you can't be reactive. It's just not a fundamentally. It's like there's too many things you have to respond to. You need to be more proactive. I like that you have Vendilion Click. I had one Vendilion Click, which was my least favorite card in the deck probably because it died to Bolt. And he was like, I like Click. If you had more clicks, that'd be good. That's like the main thing you have going for it. And I was like very disappointed with this interaction. I I actually cut Vendilion Click, partially because I was already considering it, and also because I was like, I just want to prove this guy wrong. He doesn't know what's up. Cut Vendilion Click, continued to do really well, was the trophy leader, and that was my first sort of taste of like real competitive success, larger than just like winning a couple matches in an open. And then a little bit after that, Jace the Mind Sculptor got unbanned, and so I was really happy about that. I was like, oh wow, like I was already the trophy leader with Blue Eye Control. Now we get Jace the Mind Sculptor. This is awesome. But it did not really work out that way because what happened was basically everyone else put Jace the Mind Sculptor in their decks too and started playing like weird decks. Like for a while there was a deck that was like Teamer, Bloodbraid Elf, Jace the Mind Sculptor, Blood Moon, Ancestral Vision, and like terrible deck. It had weak removal and was slow, but it just demolished Blue Eye Control. And like everyone was playing Jace, and I just had very few answers to Jace. I had like the Tension Sphere, but like it actually made my deck much worse for Jace to be unbanned. Like, yeah, I got to play Jace, but like, Jace Architect of Thought was really good for me already, and like, yeah, Jace the Mind Sculptor was a slight upgrade, but the fact that, well, first of all, everyone else was playing Jace. Second of all, everyone assumed that Jace decks were going to become really good, and so everyone started, you know, main decking Thruns and like really going hard to beat blue control decks. And so I actually became much less successful with blue white control and sort of drifted away again for a little bit. But I did a little bit of streaming back then, always with blue eye control, and still enjoyed the game. And then sort of played off and on. There's periods where I was playing most days. There's periods where I wouldn't play for like a month or two, until a month ago, basically, or like a few months ago. And I started playing. I got really into cubes. So Vintage Cube was my favorite, but I really like Legacy and Modern Cube as well. And then a few months ago, or like 1 month ago right now, I was like, hey, I'll try making a channel. I sort of found that there was not that many, like, I watched a decent amount of Magic. Even when I wasn't playing, I would sometimes watch, just because, like, it was a lower stakes, easy way to, like, think about the game and strategy in a way that I liked. My family played a lot of strategy games growing up, so that's always definitely been a passion of mine. And so I sort of was watching videos and just thinking, like, pretty much every video I watched, I thought that, like, I could probably do a little bit better. Or, like, I would notice, like, professional players that have had a lot of competitive success, like, making plays that I thought were, like, definitely wrong. And so I figured I would give it my hand at trying to make some content. And so, I mean, the rest is sort of history. I mean, as long as you can make history to, like, 2,000 people. I started recording videos, and I've been really, really overwhelmed with the support. I really, really appreciate everyone that watches my videos, that likes, subscribes, comments. It's just so fun to see, especially since most of my friends in person haven't really played Magic in a while. Like, definitely since I became sort of competitive about it, I haven't really had in-person friends that have. So, like, I had friends at Middlebury that I would do, like, drafts with, and that was definitely fun. But, like, to have a community of people now that I can, like, celebrate my accomplishments with and, like, think through hard decisions with and, like, that sort of thing is just super, super rewarding. I really love it. This has been my favorite stage of my Magic career for sure, just being able to share it with people. And so, again, I just really, really appreciate every time someone, like, comments and says, like, oh, like, what do you think about this line? And I'm like, wow, until now, like, I never would have been exposed to that. Like, I could have rewatched my own replay and, like, thought about that, and I do that for some close matches, and I actually attribute some of my success to doing that. But just to be able to have people to talk about things with, and it's so rewarding. So I really love it so much. Thank you guys so much for your support. One other sort of funny Magic anecdote is that when I was, like, senior year of college, when I was looking for jobs, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I was a math and econ. I studied math and econ, so, like, I wanted to do something generally with that, but I didn't have, like, one career path in mind. And there was someone who reached out to a probability class that I took. He's like, hey, I took this class a couple years ago. Now I work at this company. Let me, like, reach out to me with your resume if you're interested in potentially doing this. And so I emailed him. We got in contact. We had a phone call. And for the first, 20 minutes of this phone interview, it's, like, normal stuff about, like, my education, my work experience, my interests. Like, I asked him about the company, that sort of thing. And it was going well. It went really well. I do think, like, so it was for an actuarial job. Actuaries are not always the most socially skilled people. And so, and he was like a great dude, like, very sort of, like, charismatic. And so I think we just had a really good personal connection, just because I do think we both are a little bit more, like, maybe a little bit better communicating than the average person that does actuarial data analysis for most of their days. And so we were hitting it off pretty well. But then at the end of the interview, he was like, so, do you have any, like, main hobbies outside of, like, liking numbers? And I was like, yeah, I actually have a lot of success with Magic. I've been trophy leader in a couple formats. And he was like, oh, like, Magic the Gathering? And I was like, yeah. And he said, no way, dude. I went to the Pro Tour. And it turns out this dude had, like, I mean, he wasn't, like, a pro. He'd been to one Pro Tour, but he did go to one Pro Tour and, like, had a lot of success and had, broken 1900 unlimited in his constructed rating a couple times, and was just, like, a pretty high-level Magic player, too. And it was just awesome. We just, like, talked about Magic for, like, 30 minutes. And it was, like, longer than the whole course of the interview. He'd actually heard of my Magic Online username, Bennyhillz, and it was just, like, at that point I knew I was gonna get that job. It was so fun. And then in the first so I made it through that phone screen for sure. Then I go to the in-person interview, and there's a couple different interviews, and the first one was with him. The others were with people that didn't play Magic, so I had to rely on other more academic skills. But the first question of my first interview in person with this guy was, "All right, so how did you learn how to play Magic?" And then the second question was, "Tell me about your serum visions theory." And that was a lucky question because it turns out I had thought a ton about how to best use serum visions, and I had like 5 main points that I thought were like common ways people misused it. And I can make a video about serum visions at some point if you want. But like, moral of the story is I just like the interview could not have gone better. I like really just it was great. And then also there's another game called Hanabi. It's a collaborative card game that I'm super into. It's a little bit more niche, but I'm very into that. And I'm probably better at Magic, but I think that's my second best card game. And turns out they also play Magic with people, or play Hanabi with interview candidates at this company. And so literally, like they teach you how to play this game Hanabi, and then play with them. And I already knew how to play, so instead of doing that, they just like asked me about high level Hanabi theory. But I came out of that interview and legitimately thought, and still think to this day, that there was not a single person in the entire world that could have done that specific string of interviews better than me. Because I think between my Magic and my Hanabi experience, I don't think there's anyone in the world that's better than me at both of those things. And so I was like, hell yeah, like I'm feeling pretty good. And sure enough, a couple days later, get the job offer, and that's why I work to this day, and I love it. And so, Magic got me this job. It's got me like, yeah, it's really got me a lot of things. So, thank you so much to Nat Jones for teaching me how to play Magic back summer after 8th grade. That was that was a really great thing for my life. So that's my Magic history and a little bit of my life history. Now I live in Cambridge and have this job as an actuary or actuarial analyst, and um, playing Magic, recording videos. It's a whole lot of fun. Thank you everyone again for your support. And definitely let me know also if there's other sort of non-standard videos you would like me to make. So I've had a couple like theory videos. There's this one. I'm mostly going to record drafts or constructed leagues, but I'm definitely open to anything like this. Another sort of potential type of video is like, tips for how to cast Opt or Serum Visions, or like Cryptic Command, or like cards that really present you with a lot of choices, the ways to sort of maximize that. So if there's like specific cards you would like me to go into, that's definitely something I can do. Or yeah, really just any type of video. I'm down to do like a couple different styles, whatever people think would be interesting to see. So yeah, thanks for watching. Now you know a little bit more about me, and again, also comment a little bit about yourself. That would be really cool to see. All right, thanks everyone for watching. Bye.